The question is, how would I characterize the Buddhist community's attitude or response since my book and in relation to my book at the present time? It's interesting because when I was compiling this book and doing interviews and collecting essays from various people in the Buddhist world, I was anticipating, in fact, I was hoping for a great deal of controversy to erupt from this book, and that there'd be people getting up and condemning me and all this stuff, and I just thought, good, bring it on. But the Buddhists were kind of like, okay, you know. I mean, there was very little, I think it has to do with the closeted psychedelic background of most, or if not all, of the teachers, as well as a great numbers of the students as well. And so it was like, yeah, I've been there, but I don't want to talk about that now. So that sort of didn't manifest, but it was in the ether, it was in the air. I mean, people knew that this was an issue, and for God's sakes, I mean, culturally speaking, whether it's Allen Ginsberg or, I mean, any number of characters who represented in their being and in their teachings the bringing together of Buddhism and psychedelics, and it was never talked about, never written about. So it was just high time it was, and people sort of took it as sort of, okay, about time, next, you know. And I think that's the attitude now, too, is because it's, for quite a few people, there is this bias, Buddhists rather, there is this bias against psychedelics now, that we've been there and done that, now we have to sit very calmly and center ourselves. And I think that's helpful, but to deny what it is that prompted you to that impulse, or what brought you to the door of the Zendo, is ridiculous. So there's value in all of it, and if it's integrated and looked at in a less dual way, I think it's more serving. Yes? What's bad about, I knew that question was going to come. What's bad about cocaine? For me personally, you have to peel me off the ceiling if I take it. I don't, it's a problem for me, but I'm not generalizing from my experience to all humanity. I think that, you know, that's a good question. I don't have the answer, really. I think there are some recent studies. I think it's Ronald Siegel at UCLA that came out with quite a shocking study looking at the evidence of. He was looking at heart attack rates since the popularization of cocaine, and looking at data and drawing a very convincing correlation with data about people who had heart attacks with no previous heart condition, and those that used and didn't use cocaine. And he drew a very convincing correlation between cocaine use and heart attacks. If you're interested, if you're a cocaine aficionado, if you're fond of using it, I think you should look into that work. And also, just I put it in the category of a consciousness constricting material, but it's not entirely true, because it does, like all these things, there are elements of cocaine experience that is very expansive, and people can become much more sharp and aware and whatever. But I think something gets left out of their awareness, and there's a kind of I think on the whole, my experience of it is, and in my judgment, that it's a consciousness constricting material as opposed to an expansive one. So, especially in terms of the whole picture, the heart space, mental capacity, empathy, all of those issues. You might feel brighter and sharper, but you might be meaner and less compassionate. Yes? Well, that's interesting. The question was, in doing the research for Zig Zag Zen, what have I discovered about why many of the Buddhist teachers that previously used stopped using, or Buddhist students or whatever? I think, you know, I didn't really come up with a strong set of examples in each case. My own instinctual response to that question is that as a continuous path, it requires a braver soul than I have to be using psychedelics on a regular basis, on a constant basis, to arrive at my own evolutionary goals. And to use it as a gateway or a way to from time to time, check in on my real progress or to stimulate further evolution is somehow, in my experience, and I think in extrapolating from many interviews, kind of the experience that many people have had, is a more effective use of psychedelics than sort of a daily, weekly practice of taking psychedelics. So that's just off the cuff, but that's how I'd respond to that. Yes? The questioner was referring to the Makyo experience that in the Zen tradition, particularly the Japanese Zen tradition, taking psychedelics or having these breakthroughs and insights from psychedelics is a state that sometimes can be mimicked in your meditative experience, and that one should disregard that. Well, I don't know how easily you can disregard that. I don't even know if you should disregard it. And Buddhism comes in a variety of ethnic envelopes, and all of them have their own baggage. And I think that that's part of Japanese Zen baggage, of which there's quite a bit. The teachers really are very strict in Zen, and that's good in one sense. But in another sense, if it's something outside their experience, they're leaving out something that's very helpful and can serve us. I don't buy that theory at all, and I think that, as I said, that's something really hard to identify, and it's also pretty hard to do. So I would disregard that. Yes? The question was saying if you're encountering law enforcement or the authorities, like you're caught for taking psychedelics or having them, that one should use the spiritual excuse that this is this is my religion, officer, and yeah. Well, I mean, how do I answer that one? I'm sure they're going to go really accept that and just say, well, next time be more careful, That's a tough one, because there are members of the law enforcement community that would, respect a person if they felt they were sincere, that this is something I'm doing for my personal evolution, that's something, it's a religious act for me, officer, and I'm sorry I'm driving while I'm doing it, but, but I think there's most of them wouldn't, and, in my personal experience, I would have trouble even bringing that side of what is sacred in that experience to their attention. It would somehow pollute it for me to even have him thinking about it in that sense. So I would just go, oh, I'm bad luck, I'm whatever, and then just keep my mouth shut, I suppose, and just pay my fine or whatever. In the future, I think that hopefully we won't have to grin and bear it. We'll be able to make a very strong case, because there's a lot of evidence for it, that it